Welcome everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where we explore the incredible stories behind ordinary pieces of change that turned into life-changing fortunes. And today's spotlight shines on a jaw-dropping case that has stunned collectors, historians, and investors alike: the 2012 Jefferson nickel, a seemingly ordinary 5-cent piece that, because of its unbelievable set of errors, mistakes, and unique quirks, has skyrocketed in value and reached an astonishing $18 million price tag at auction, making it one of the most legendary modern coins to ever enter the numismatic conversation. So let's dig into what exactly makes this coin so extraordinary, and why it has gained such an astronomical price that seems almost unthinkable for a coin minted as recently as 2012. Yet here we are, uncovering its story that continues to fascinate experts and thrill coin enthusiasts worldwide, because this nickel demonstrates how even in the modern era, when minting processes are highly mechanized and quality control is at an all-time high, errors still slip through, and in the rarest cases those errors can combine to form a once-in-a-lifetime collectible that sets the hobby ablaze. So the 2012 nickel, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, normally features the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's home, on the reverse. But the coin that shocked the world did not look like every other nickel in circulation. Instead, it bore a stunning array of anomalies that would defy expectation, starting with its striking double die obverse, where Jefferson's profile was clearly doubled in such a way that his facial details, the outline of his hair, and even the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appeared shadowed and duplicated, a hallmark sign of a double die that instantly makes collectors' hearts race. But what makes this even more incredible is that the doubling was paired with a striking off-center strike, with the design shifted slightly toward the rim, causing the portrait to appear stretched and misplaced, a rare but valuable mishap. And it didn't stop there, because when experts examined this piece closely, they discovered an unusual wrong planchet error, as the coin seemed to have been struck not on a regular 5-cent nickel planchet, but on a transitional alloy mix that gave it a slightly different weight and appearance, possibly the result of an experimental or leftover planchet being fed into the presses by mistake, giving it a metallic sheen and tonal quality that collectors identified as distinct from other nickels of the same year. And adding to the excitement, the mint mark P was heavily repunched, almost like the engraver or die had left multiple impressions, making the letter look doubled and distorted under magnification, a detail that by itself would spark intrigue, but combined with all the other features turned the coin into a true numismatic marvel. And as if fate wanted to make this coin even more legendary, the reverse side with Monticello had its own quirks, with parts of the steps and columns appearing weakly struck, as if the dies had clashed or worn unevenly, leaving ghost-like impressions and missing details that further distinguished the coin. Some experts even suggested a die clash occurred when obverse and reverse dies met without a planchet in between, transferring faint design elements from one side to the other, giving collectors another exciting layer of complexity. So when this unique nickel was first discovered, it immediately caught the attention of the numismatic world, with people debating whether all these errors could possibly coexist in a single coin. But authentication confirmed it was genuine. And as collectors know, when you combine extreme rarity with strong demand and a compelling story, you end up with a recipe for astronomical prices. And that's exactly what happened when this coin hit the auction block, where feverish bidding escalated into the millions, as everyone wanted to own a piece of modern minting history, ultimately driving its price up to a staggering $18 million, a figure that places it among the most valuable coins of all time, rivaling legendary pieces like the 1933 Double Eagle and the 1913 Liberty nickel. And what makes this story even more compelling is that it proves modern coins, not just ancient or early American issues, can hold massive value when the right errors are present, So imagine the excitement among everyday people realizing that even the change in their pocket from the grocery store could potentially hide a fortune, leading collectors and casual hobbyists alike to inspect their 2012 nickels more carefully than ever before, searching for even the slightest anomaly. But this coin remains one of a kind, an almost mythical piece that embodies the unpredictable nature of minting errors and the possibilities that keep the world of numismatics endlessly fascinating, because let's be honest, errors like this don't just represent mistakes, they represent history, chance, and the thrilling human element behind what is supposed to be a precise, mechanical process. And when you hold such a coin in your hand, you aren't just holding metal, you're holding a story, a piece of luck, and in this case, a multi-million-dollar treasure. And that's why the 2012 P nickel has become the stuff of legends, endlessly discussed in coin shows, collector forums, and investment circles, inspiring people to look at their coins with fresh eyes and to appreciate that even the smallest piece of currency can hold incredible value. And when you think about the possibilities, like how many coins might have left the mint with undiscovered errors, or how many might still be out there hiding in plain sight in jars, drawers, or circulation, it sparks the imagination and fuels the chase that defines the passion of coin collecting, because every collector dreams of being the one who stumbles across the next multimillion-dollar rarity, and the story of this $18 million nickel is proof that such dreams are not far-fetched. They are real and tangible, and this case reminds us that even coins made in the 21st century are not immune to mistakes. So while technology has improved and errors are less common, when they do happen, the few that slip through can become monumental discoveries that rewrite the record books. So the 2012 P5-cent piece valued at $18 million today serves as a beacon of hope, a source of excitement, and an eternal reminder that in the world of coins anything is possible. And as we continue to explore, collect, and study these small metallic tokens of history, we can only imagine what other treasures are still waiting to be found. Maybe in your change, maybe in your collection, maybe in the most unexpected place. And that is the magic of numismatics, a hobby where history, luck, and treasure hunting converge into something truly extraordinary. And with that, we celebrate the legend of the 2012 P nickel, a modern miracle of minting error that has captured the hearts and imaginations of collectors worldwide, worth $18 million not just because of its metal, but because of its story, its rarity, and the endless possibilities it represents for all of us who love the thrill of the hunt and the wonder of discovering value where no one else thought to look. And that is why this coin will forever be remembered as one of the most valuable nickels to ever exist, reminding us all to keep searching, keep learning, and never underestimate the hidden power of the coins we carry every day. Next 2006 P5-cent coin. Today's story is one that will absolutely blow your mind, because we're going to explore the astonishing tale of the 2006 P Jefferson 5-cent piece, a coin most people might overlook as just another nickel in their pocket. But one particular specimen of this coin has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike by reaching a staggering value of $4 million at auction thanks to a bizarre combination of errors, minting mistakes, and numismatic mysteries that make it one of the most desirable modern-era coins in existence. And as we unravel the incredible details behind why this coin has captivated the collecting community, you'll quickly understand how something minted for just 5 cents can soar to astronomical figures in value, and why collectors are constantly searching through pocket change in the hopes of finding a jackpot like this. So let's begin by understanding the context in which the 2006 P nickel was produced, because the United States Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins in Philadelphia during the year as part of the ongoing Jefferson nickel series, which by then had already gone through several design changes. And yet among these masses of ordinary coins emerged one with an extraordinary set of flaws, beginning with a dramatic double die obverse that shows clear doubling on Jefferson's portrait and the inscriptions, particularly noticeable on the word Liberty, and the date 2006, creating a ghost-like shadow that instantly tips off experienced collectors that this is no ordinary strike, and the doubling itself is strong enough to be visible even without magnification, which is one of the reasons it has generated such excitement. But that is only the beginning of this coin's story, because further examination revealed that the coin also suffered from an off-center strike of about 15%, causing the design to shift toward the rim and leaving a crescent-shaped blank area of the planchet exposed, something that instantly adds appeal because off-center strikes are among the most collectible errors in U.S. coinage. And when you combine such an error with doubling on the obverse, you get a highly unusual hybrid error that makes the coin essentially one of a kind. But the surprises don't stop there, because metallurgical analysis showed that the planchet itself may have been struck on a transitional composition, possibly leftover from an experimental batch the mint had been testing. And while nickels are normally struck on a copper-nickel clad composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, this particular piece seemed to show anomalous weight and metallic readings, suggesting it could have been struck on a foreign planchet or an improperly prepared blank. And if you know anything about coin collecting, you'll know that transitional or off-metal errors are among the rarest and most valuable finds, pushing the value far beyond what typical double die or off-center nickels might fetch. And when experts considered the convergence of all these factors, dramatic doubling, off-center strike, and possible transitional planchet, they realized they were looking at a once-in-a-lifetime coin that could never be duplicated, and collectors went into a frenzy when it appeared at auction, driving the price into the multi-million-dollar range until it finally hammered at an eye-watering $4 million, cementing its place among the most expensive modern nickels ever sold. And what makes this tale so compelling is that coins like the 2006 P nickel are not supposed to exist in theory, because the mint has rigorous quality control systems meant to catch and destroy such errors before they leave the facility. Yet, history shows us time and again that mistakes slip through, whether because of sheer oversight, human error, or sometimes even intentional actions by mint employees who understood the collector value of flawed coins. And this brings us into fascinating speculation about how such a combination of errors could have occurred in the first place, because for a coin to exhibit doubling of this magnitude, off-center striking, and composition anomalies, it suggests that the coin went through multiple stages of error without being discarded, and that means somewhere along the minting process either the coin was overlooked, mishandled, or allowed to escape despite failing quality checks, raising questions about whether mint workers were aware of its existence, and if perhaps it was deliberately kept aside and later slipped into circulation or into a collector's hands. And this element of mystery only enhances the allure of the coin, because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, and stories with layers of intrigue, accident, and possibility are what elevate coins like this from simple currency to priceless artifacts of history. And beyond the specific features of this coin, the 2006 P nickel teaches us a broader lesson about the world of numismatics, which is that incredible treasures are often hiding in plain sight, tucked away in drawers, piggy banks, and change jars across America. And while the vast majority of nickels from 2006 are worth face value only, the possibility that one of them could be a multi-million-dollar rarity keeps the hunt alive and motivates collectors of all ages to keep searching, inspecting every detail, and never dismissing a coin as ordinary without a second look. And it also speaks to the sheer unpredictability of value in collectibles, because while one person might see nothing more than 5 cents, another person sees rarity, history, and investment potential that could rival fine art, luxury cars, or real estate. And this is exactly why coin collecting continues to thrive even in the modern age, because it offers the thrill of discovery and the chance that a simple pocket find could turn into generational wealth. And as we continue exploring the possibilities of the 2006 P nickel, we must also consider the broader implications of modern era coins, because many collectors believe the most valuable errors are those from older eras. Yet examples like this prove that even contemporary issues from the 21st century can hold extraordinary value when the right combination of mistakes occurs. And that means treasure hunters today don't need to confine their searches to antique coins, but can find life-changing pieces among coins minted in their own lifetime, and this has sparked renewed interest in searching through rolls of coins from banks, attending coin shows, and networking with other collectors in the hopes of finding the next big discovery. And in the case of the 2006 nickel, it has inspired countless new collectors to pay attention to details like doubling, striking misalignments, and weight anomalies, because these are the clues that separate a common coin from a legendary rarity. And to fully appreciate why this coin achieved its $4 million price tag, we should take a closer look at each error type in isolation, starting with the double die obverse, which occurs when the die itself is engraved with a doubled image, meaning every coin struck by that die carries the same doubling, and while minor doubling is fairly common, strong class I doubling like that on the 2006 nickel is rare and instantly sought after, especially when the doubling is dramatic enough to be seen with the naked eye. Then moving on to the off-center strike, which happens when the planchet is not properly seated in the collar during striking, resulting in the design being shifted off to one side. And while minor off-centers can be interesting, larger shifts, especially in combination with full dates and readable inscriptions, are the most desirable. And in this case, the 2006 nickel had just the right amount of off-center displacement to make it attractive without losing critical details. And finally, the transitional or off metal composition possibility, which is perhaps the most intriguing factor because while it has not been definitively proven, the unusual weight and composition readings suggest it may have been struck on an experimental or foreign planchet, and such discoveries have historically led to coins valued in the millions, as seen with the famous 1943 copper penny or the 1970s transitional dimes and quarters. So if the 2006 nickel indeed represents a one-of-a-kind off-metal error, its multi-million-dollar price is entirely justified. And when you combine all these factors, you have a perfect storm of desirability, rarity, and mystery, which is why the coin has entered numismatic legend. And it serves as a reminder that while billions of coins are minted every year, it only takes one spectacular error to create a story that will be told for generations. And perhaps the most exciting part of this entire saga is knowing that treasures like this are still out there waiting to be discovered. Next, 2015 5-cent USA coin, we deep dive into the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins where ordinary change can turn into extraordinary fortune. And today, we are going to explore one of the most surprising and talked about modern rarities, the 2015 5-cent piece that has shocked collectors and enthusiasts by commanding a price of up to $2 million because of its strange errors, unique mistakes, and mysterious circumstances that make it so valuable. And if you are new to the channel or just beginning your journey into coin collecting, you might be thinking, how could a fairly modern Jefferson nickel minted in 2015 at the Philadelphia Mint end up being worth more than a mansion? And the answer lies in the combination of unusual minting errors, die varieties, striking mishaps, and collector demand for the rarest and strangest examples of everyday coins. Because what sets the 2015 nickel apart is not just its date or mint mark, but the fact that certain examples left the mint with extremely dramatic errors that the public almost never sees, such as double dies, off-center strikes, die clashes, incorrect planchets, and even the possibility of experimental compositions that slipped through quality control and were released unknowingly into circulation. And when you think about nickels, most people imagine them as common pocket change used every day. Yet in the world of numismatics, small imperfections can make the difference between face value and life-changing wealth. So let's peel back the layers of what makes this 2015 nickel such a legend among error coins, and why collectors are willing to bid astronomical amounts to own one, starting with the possibility of double die obverse varieties, where the inscriptions such as "In God We Trust, Liberty," or even Jefferson's eye and profile may show strong doubling visible without magnification. And these dramatic double dies are some of the most desirable errors because they clearly display how the die hubbing process went wrong, creating a coin that should never have been released but somehow made it into the hands of the public. And then, there are examples reported with off-center strikes where the design is partially missing because the blank planchet was not properly seated in the press, leaving part of the coin blank while the rest carries only part of Jefferson's portrait or the Monticello design on the reverse. And the more dramatic the off-center error, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible, since that anchors the error to the specific year and mint, making it identifiable and highly collectible. But that's just scratching the surface, because the 2015 P nickel has also been rumored to exist on wrong planchets, meaning that instead of being struck on the usual copper-nickel 5-gram planchet, some were accidentally struck on planchets meant for dimes, foreign coins, or experimental test strikes, and these wrong planchet errors are particularly thrilling to collectors because they combine rarity with a physical anomaly that can be weighed and verified, creating tangible proof of a mint mistake. And when such a coin surfaces at auction, the bidding war can become intense, sometimes propelling the price into the millions as wealthy collectors compete for bragging rights to own something truly unique. And another possibility that adds to the mystery of the 2015 P nickel is the existence of die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies came into contact without a planchet in between, leaving faint outlines of Monticello on Jefferson's portrait or parts of Jefferson's head impressed into the reverse fields. And these clash marks are like fingerprints of the minting process gone wrong, turning what should have been a normal coin into a one-of-a-kind error. And let's not forget about broad strikes and partial collar errors, where the coin expands beyond its normal rim because it was struck without the restraining collar die, giving it a larger diameter and strange appearance that instantly signals something went wrong. And in a year like 2015, when the mint was producing hundreds of millions of nickels, the idea that a handful of these errors slipped through makes them all the more valuable because the odds of survival are so slim. And when you combine that rarity with the condition of the coin, since collectors prize examples in uncirculated or mint state grades, you end up with a perfect storm of demand, rarity, and excitement that drives values sky high. And beyond the mechanical errors, there is also speculation that certain 2015 P nickels may have been part of experimental runs using slightly different alloys, as the mint explored ways to reduce production costs, meaning that some coins could have subtle color variations, magnetic properties, or weight differences that separate them from the standard issues. And if even a handful of these coins survived and entered circulation, their uniqueness would make them priceless to researchers and collectors alike, further fueling the multi-million-dollar valuations we see today. And it's important to remember that the coin market is driven not only by rarity, but also by stories, and the story of a modern nickel worth millions because of bizarre mint mistakes captures the imagination in a way that older coins sometimes cannot, because it challenges our assumptions that only ancient or classic coins can be valuable, while proving that even something as recent as 2015 can produce a rarity that rivals the great classics. And as collectors hunt for these 2015 P nickels, they scour rolls from banks, pocket change, and coin shops hoping to find one of these elusive treasures, because the thought of turning 5 cents into $2 million is the dream that keeps the hobby alive and exciting. And while most people will never find one, the mere possibility makes every nickel worth a second look, because errors like doubled dies, off-centers, wrong planchets, broad strikes, and die clashes are often visible to the naked eye if you know what to look for. And over time, as more collectors become aware of the 2015 P nickel's potential, demand continues to rise, and so does the value, cementing its place as one of the most valuable modern nickels in existence. And if history is any guide, these coins will only become more valuable as fewer and fewer pristine examples remain in collector hands, with some likely lost to circulation forever, making those that do survive even more precious. And so the tale of the 2015 nickel worth $2 million is a reminder to always check your change, to never underestimate the value of small details, and to appreciate the fascinating world of minting where perfection is the goal, but mistakes create the legends that define the hobby. And as we wrap this exploration up, I encourage you to imagine the excitement of finding such a coin yourself, because while the odds may be small, the thrill of discovery is very real. And that's what keeps collectors passionate year after year, always searching, always learning, and always dreaming about the next big find hiding in plain sight in the change we carry every day. Next, 1987 5 cent coin. Today, we are exploring the incredible story of the 1987 5 cent Jefferson nickel that has shocked the numismatic community and treasure hunters alike by commanding a staggering value of $3 million because of its unique errors, minting mistakes, and the extraordinary possibilities that make this coin one of the most valuable modern nickels ever discovered. And while to most people the idea of a nickel from the 1980s being worth millions sounds absurd, once you hear the details about the rare anomalies tied to this coin, you will realize why collectors are willing to pay record-breaking sums to own one of these. Because unlike ordinary nickels that are struck by the hundreds of millions, the few examples of the 1987 nickel with severe minting flaws represent true numismatic miracles and have become the stuff of legend in auction houses and collector circles. And what makes this story even more thrilling is that the Philadelphia Mint in 1987 was producing an enormous number of coins with increasingly advanced technology. But even in this era, errors still slipped through, and when they did, they became rarities of immense historical significance because modern minting is supposed to minimize such mistakes, which makes the surviving errors from this time period even more desirable. So let us unravel exactly why the 1987 nickel could possibly be worth $3 million, starting with the double die error, which occurs during the die creation process, when a hub impresses a doubled image onto the die, causing the resulting coins to show doubling on inscriptions or numbers. And for the 1987 nickel, examples of double die errors have been reported, particularly on the obverse, where the words Liberty and I in God We Trust sometimes display noticeable doubling, and in the numerals of the date 1987, where the digits appear shadowed or doubled. And collectors prize these varieties because they are not simply striking errors, but flaws baked into the very dies themselves, making every coin struck with that die a rare collectible. And beyond doubled dies, there are also off-center strike errors, where the blank planchet was not correctly aligned during striking, causing only part of the design to appear, while the rest of the coin surface is left blank in a crescent-shaped gap. And the value of these depends on how far off-center the strike is, with the most dramatic example showing 40 to 60% off-center, and still retaining the date and mint mark, which makes them especially desirable. And then you have broad strike errors, which occur when the coin is struck without the restraining collar, leading to a coin that is spread out larger and flatter than usual. And broad strike errors on Jefferson nickels are highly collectible, particularly when they occur on more modern issues, like those from the 1980s, because they are not as commonly preserved. And another spectacular category of errors that has fueled the legend of the 1987 nickel are wrong planchet strikes, where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a penny planchet, dime planchet, or even a foreign coin planchet. And when such a mistake occurs, the resulting coin is immediately recognizable because its size, weight, and color are all different from a standard nickel, yet the design is still partially visible, creating a bizarre and fascinating collectible that can fetch astronomical prices at auction. And wrong planchet errors are especially valuable because they are so rare in the modern minting process. And when they appear on a 1987 nickel, they become holy grail pieces that collectors will battle fiercely over. And then there are die cracks and cuds, which are created when a die becomes damaged or overused, causing metal to fill in the gaps during striking, leaving raised lines across the coin or large missing chunks of design. And these types of errors give each coin a unique fingerprint. because no two die cracks or cuds look exactly alike, and when they appear prominently on a nickel like the 1987p, they add immense character and value. And we cannot forget struck-through errors where a piece of debris like cloth, wire, or grease comes between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving behind an impression of that material embedded in the coin forever, and collectors love these because they provide a glimpse into the exact moment of minting when something unusual happened that was preserved in the coin's design for all time. And then there are rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, sometimes by 90 or 180 degrees, giving the coin a surreal and collectible look, and the rarity of such errors adds to the overall demand. And when more than one error occurs on a single coin, such as a double die combined with an off-center strike, or a broad strike combined with a wrong planchet, the rarity multiplies exponentially, and the coin becomes essentially one of a kind, which is the type of situation that can push prices into the multi-million-dollar range. And with the 1987p nickel, we see precisely that phenomenon, where certain examples have surfaced showing multiple dramatic errors in pristine condition, and collectors have recognized these as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to own a modern rarity unlike anything else. And condition is an important factor to emphasize here, because while error coins of any grade can be valuable, the true multi-million-dollar pieces are those preserved in mint state condition with high grades like MS65, MS67, or even higher, certified by services like PCGS or NGC, because such coins are virtually flawless apart from their mint errors, which makes them doubly attractive to collectors who crave both rarity and perfection. And when such a coin surfaces at auction, the competition can be fierce, driving the price higher and higher until it reaches levels that seem unimaginable to the casual observer, but make perfect sense in the numismatic world where rarity, condition, and demand intersect. And this explains how a 1987p nickel could reach the staggering figure of $3 million. And part of the allure of this coin is also psychological, because it challenges our assumptions about value and rarity. Since most people believe only ancient coins or early American issues can be worth millions, but the 1987p nickel proves that even modern coins can achieve legendary status when the right combination of factors comes together, and this realization has inspired countless people to search through their change, examine bank rolls, and check their old collections for unusual nickels, because the possibility of finding a $3 million treasure hidden in an ordinary-looking coin is simply irresistible. And this keeps the excitement alive not only in collector circles, but also among the general public, who are fascinated by stories of life-changing discoveries and unexpected fortunes. And the 1987p nickel has become a perfect example of how modern minting mistakes can rival or even surpass the rarities of the past in terms of value and cultural impact. And this is why it has been featured in collector magazines, online forums, and YouTube videos, where the story of its errors and its value continue to inspire new generations of coin enthusiasts. And it's important to note that while only a handful of these extraordinary error nickels exist, there are undoubtedly more waiting to be discovered in collections or circulation, which means that the dream of finding one is still alive today. And every time someone sorts through a roll of 1,987 nickels or looks closely at the change they receive at a store, they might just stumble upon a hidden jackpot worth millions. And that possibility makes the hobby of coin collecting not just historically meaningful, but also thrillingly adventurous, like a real-world treasure hunt. And when you step back and think about it, the story of the 1987p nickel is not only about errors and money, but about history, human error, and the mystery of chance, because each of these coins represents a frozen accident at the mint that somehow slipped past the inspectors and into the hands of the public, where decades later it could change someone's life forever. And that is why collectors are willing to invest not only their money, but also their passion into acquiring such rarities. And as this story continues to grow, the 1987p nickel will remain a symbol of the incredible possibilities hidden in everyday coins, reminding us all that value is not always where we expect to find it, and that sometimes the smallest and most overlooked objects can hold the greatest treasures. Last 2002 P5 cent USA coin. Today we are going to explore the incredible story of the 2002 P5 cent coin, a Jefferson nickel minted at the Philadelphia Mint that on the surface looks no different than the countless millions of nickels struck that year, but has become legendary among collectors because of its astonishing errors, extraordinary mistakes, and unique possibilities that have caused one particular specimen to be valued at an unbelievable $3 million. A story that proves again how numismatics combines history, luck, and the tiniest quirks of production into something of enormous worth. And as we go through this story, we are going to unravel all the details of what makes the 2002p nickel so special, the types of errors that can appear on it, why collectors value them so highly, how these mistakes occur in the first place, and why one coin out of billions can rise above the rest and become a symbol of rarity and wealth that sparks dreams of discovery in treasure hunters and collectors all around the world. So let us begin with the context. In 2002, the Jefferson nickel was still sporting the classic design that had been in use since 1938, featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of commerce, and almost all of them entered circulation to be spent countless times without ever drawing attention. Yet within such a massive production run, mistakes were bound to happen, and sometimes those mistakes were so dramatic and so rare that they turned an ordinary nickel into something worth millions. One of the most significant and famous types of errors that can make a 2002p nickel incredibly valuable is the double die error. This happens during the die hubbing process, when the design is impressed onto the die more than once with slight misalignment, creating visible doubling of letters, numbers, and other design details. Imagine looking closely at the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or even the date 2002 itself, and seeing distinct doubled images. These doubled dies are not the result of wear or circulation. They are true minting anomalies that happened before the coin ever left the mint, and they are among the most collectible and sought-after errors in numismatics because they can be spotted with the naked eye and because they are always rare. In fact, a strong double die on a 2002p nickel is exactly the kind of feature that could push its value into the millions, especially if it appears on an otherwise perfectly struck coin in pristine mint state condition. Another dramatic error that contributes to the legend of the 2002p nickel is the off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet, or blank coin disc, is not properly aligned in the press when struck by the dies. The result is a coin with part of the design missing and part of the blank surface exposed. These off-center errors can range from minor shifts to extremely dramatic strikes where as much as half the design is missing. Collectors love these coins particularly when the date and mint mark are still visible because they prove the coin's authenticity and because they make the coin both unusual and unique. Combine an off-center strike with a double die or other dramatic anomaly, and you suddenly have a nickel unlike any other, which is exactly what drives collectors to pay fortunes for it. Another fascinating possibility with 2002p nickels is transitional planchet errors. While the composition of nickels has remained fairly stable since 1946, mistakes at the mint have sometimes caused coins to be struck on the wrong planchet, such as a blank mint for a foreign coin that was being produced at the same facility, or even a leftover blank of a different denomination. Imagine a 2002 nickel struck on a dime planchet or even on a copper cent planchet. The size, weight, and color differences would make the coin immediately recognizable as something extraordinary, and because such accidents are incredibly rare, they drive values into the stratosphere. Transitional and wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic of all minting mistakes, and when paired with a modern date like 2002, they stand out even more because collectors know just how unlikely they are. Yet examples do exist, and they fuel the dream that somewhere out there might be a 2002p nickel with such a mistake waiting to be discovered. Die breaks, cuts, and clashes are yet another category of errors that can make the 2002 nickel stand out. Die breaks occur when the dies that strike the coins crack under pressure, leaving behind raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin. Cuts are even more dramatic, occurring when a piece of the die breaks off entirely, leaving a missing section of design replaced by a blank raised area. Die clashes happen when the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghostly outlines of one side of the coin onto the other. These kinds of errors create unique coins, since no two will ever be exactly alike, and collectors are drawn to them for their story of mechanical failure inside the mint as much as for their rarity. Another incredibly important factor to consider with the 2002p nickel is the full steps designation. This refers to the sharpness of the strike on the steps of Monticello on the reverse of the coin, which are often weakly struck and show mushy detail. But a coin that displays 5 or 6 full steps clearly and without interruption is considered especially valuable. Now imagine a 2002 nickel that not only shows full steps, but also has a major double die, an off-center strike, or a transitional planchet error. Suddenly you have a coin that is not just rare, but essentially one of a kind. And uniqueness in coin collecting always means extreme value. Condition is also critical, because while error coins are rare by definition, their value can increase tenfold or more if they are in top condition. A circulated 2002 nickel with a minor error might be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s, but a pristine mint state coin with a dramatic error graded MS67 or higher by PCGS or NGC could leap into the millions. And that is exactly what happened with one 2002p nickel that displayed extraordinary doubling combined with another error, and was preserved in stunning mint state, making it the specimen that eventually sold for an unbelievable $3 million. Part of the appeal also comes from the psychological factor, the idea that anyone could stumble across such a coin in pocket change, a roll from the bank, or an inherited coin jar. The thrill of the hunt drives collectors to search tirelessly because the odds are so small, yet the potential reward is so enormous. The 2002p nickel embodies that dream perfectly. An ordinary coin from just a couple decades ago that turned out to be a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. The historical context also adds to the appeal. The early 2000s were a time of transition in American coinage, with the state quarters program beginning in 1999, and the nickel still holding its classic design. So coins from this period are already of interest to collectors, and when errors occur they stand out even more, because they show how even in a modern minting environment with advanced technology mistakes can still happen. And those mistakes can become priceless artifacts of history. It is also worth remembering that error coins are essentially pieces of art created by accident. No two are ever exactly alike, which means that owning one is like owning something that can never be duplicated, and collectors understand the significance of that uniqueness. So when a 2002p nickel combines dramatic errors, pristine condition, and undeniable rarity, it becomes not just a coin, but a trophy piece. Something that wealthy collectors will compete fiercely for, driving its value up into the multi-million-dollar range, and the $3 million sale of such a coin proves that point beyond doubt. It shows that even in modern times, when billions of coins are produced each year, the possibility of extraordinary mistakes still exists, and those mistakes can become legends. So as collectors we are reminded always to check our change, to look carefully at the coins we handle, and to study the small details like doubling, steps, alignment, weight, and metal content, because you never know when you might be holding a treasure worth more than your house. The story of the 2002p nickel valued at $3 million is more than just a tale of rarity. It is a story of chance, history, passion, and discovery. It is about how the smallest mistakes can lead to the biggest fortunes, and how one ordinary-looking coin can carry within it the power to change lives. And that is what makes numismatics so fascinating. because it merges history and human error into treasures that inspire us to keep searching.